Technology, diversity, wine, the redwoods, and everything in between. Welcome to the Northern California Bay Area, and one show takes you inside the real estate that makes it all happen. This is By the Bay.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Dan Ancheta here, back with another episode of By the Bay. I'm super excited to be here today with my good friend and referral partner, Chris Asimos, who is with Compass Real Estate here in Petaluma, California. Chris, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
And so here we are. It's the kind of beginning of December. Everyone's kind of getting their years wound down and looking at the holidays and, getting ready for next year. So I want to jump right into like what's happening right now, are things slowing down right now with the holidays, or what are you seeing right now in the market?
Yeah, things are slowing down a little naturally, just like they always do. But, there's still people out there taking advantage of some opportunities, people that are seeing houses on the market, just like we see stuff traded every day. Most of the stuff's coming out today. People are doing it for a reason. They got to make a move.
Right. No, so it's interesting because we're hearing all this kind of, I watch the news, I read the newspaper, and I see all like, I'm not sure about you, because I get a lot of targeted ads on social because I'm in the real estate world.
Just a few.
Yeah, totally. Seems like those have picked up lately too. It's super interesting because there's all this talk about things are slowing down and there's less buyers and there's all this kind of talk about that. But you make a really good point that certain people really do need to do something. They have to do some type of transaction. They need a place to live at the end of the day, right? So tell me about like your markets that you work in, right? And what you're experiencing with buyers. What mix of business are you doing? You're doing mostly buyers or mostly sellers right now?
It's a bit of an even mix, probably more buyers over a longer period of time.
Okay. So let's focus on the buyer side.
Yeah.
So right now we're standing towards at the end of 2022. What are your buyers experiencing now?
My buyers are experiencing, here in my main focus of the market that I work in Petaluma, and neighboring cities that touch our city. People are still out there. They're waiting for that right house to hit the market. Our inventories are still low. They're naturally low in this time of year, but over the last few months, over this last quarter of 2022, we're still seeing low numbers. And so people from the buyer side are just not seeing that right house come on the market, if any houses at all.
Right. So inventory, nationally, I think there's more inventory now than there was, a year ago, but there's still not enough.
100%.
Right. Because there's not enough new construction happening, and there's just not enough housing inventory nationally. And especially kind of locally in that market in Petaluma and Sonoma County, there's some construction happening, but it's not enough.
Oh yeah.
Right. So talk to me about like you said like the perfect house hasn't come up. What are your clients looking for?
Well, my clients are spread across a number of kind of, genres. They're families, they're single folks that have downsized and looking for that space for themselves. Maybe that they're moving from out of the area into town to be closer to family and grandkids and all that stuff. So it's a nice mix. But here in Petaluma, I feel like we felt a little bit of influx over the last couple of years where we've had a lot of people from out of the area move here.
For sure.
And so we have that little bit of a reset where we're now waiting for people to move out, right? And so we had this pandemic hit. It's taken a couple of years now, and now we're seeing a little bit of that slowdown. I think that's what's causing a little bit of these slowdown in numbers, but life still goes on. Transactions still happen every day in the market.
For sure. Yeah, I think I've seen a trend of people moving from the Bay, like the South Bay, East Bay, San Francisco, and actually a lot from just like neighboring Marin County moving up here where housing is a little bit more affordable.
A little bit more for your money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And because they're able to telecommute, maybe or work from home. I guess telecommuting is probably an outdated term now.
Probably.
Yeah. God. Anyway, yeah. So they're like doing the work from home thing a couple of days a week, or maybe even full time.
Sure.
That the proximity to being close to their employer in San Francisco or the South Bay is important, so they can go to a meeting, right?
Exactly.
But not necessarily every single day.
And that's the beauty of Petaluma being in the southern part of Sonoma County here. Right. We have that perfect distance away. You feel your wine country. You feel like you've kind of have this little town farther away from the Bay Area, but you still have that connection if need be.
Yeah, for sure. It's yeah. I always say that like it's the last place you can really feasibly live in, and as far as going north, and still go to the city every single day if you need to. Any further north, it's just too far.
I totally agree.
Yeah. So first-time home buyers are dealing with a lot?
Yeah, first-time home buyers are out there. I think those are the people that, in general, are probably a little bit more on the sidelines right now. We've seen this influx of interest rates going up in the last couple months. Maybe last couple weeks, I should say.
Yeah.
You and I live and breathe it every day.
Every day, yeah.
It's a little bit hard to conceptualize that sometimes, but those first-time home buyers, I think, are on the sidelines. Those are the ones waiting, like, kind of scared. What do I do? What's the market going to do? What is it going to look like? Is there going to be an influx of inventory coming on next spring like there naturally does? But
Sure.
That's what I'm seeing from those folks.
So, Chris, what advice would you give to a first-time home buyer? Like, so, it's interesting because we live in it every single day, like you said, and most people might do 3 or 4 transactions in their entire life. So it's, even if they've done it before, there's not part of their daily business like it is for me and you. So if you're a first-time home buyer right now, with all of the variables that you've seen in inventory and prices and rates and all this other stuff, like, what advice would you give to someone who's maybe wanting to buy their first home, but is not, hasn't made that full decision to, like, go after it hard?
Sure. You said it right there. There's a lot of variables. You got to really dumb it down and simplify it and keep those folks on one path. The more you can do that, the more clear it becomes for them and help them focus on what they actually need. So you focus on what they actually need and just make sure they have that vision towards what they can find.
Right.
If they have to worry about the rate and the economy and is there inventory, is it in this neighborhood? Let's just leave that up to where the pieces fall, and the right place will come along. And when it does, just make sure that they're prepared.
So walk me through that. So what does that actually look like when you're like, what does the user consumer experience actually look like when someone works with you?
So with me, with Compass, excuse me, we have some great tools to offer, especially on the buyer side. We can, both work as a buyer and myself together on our Compass collections. We call it as the search tool. Just like anything on the internet, we see all the listings coming from the MLS, but we can share in real time and connect and chat and like and dislike.
So the MLS is like the multiple listing service. So that's the actual like tool that's used that realtors upload their properties that are
correct
for sale, and then other people can search through that.
Exactly.
That's kind of like the backbone system behind it. Okay, so keep going.
So listings come on, they become active. Everybody in the public can now see them through different avenues like our Compass collections, through online,
right? Zillow and Redfin,
and all that stuff.
Realtor.com,
so
all that stuff.
My buyers and I, we can get on the same page and see those in live real time, what houses are coming on the market. We can communicate, and that's my favorite tool that Compass offers. But I think it's the best helpful tool between my buyers and myself to stay on the same page and because life's busy. They're at work, they're running around, they got kids, they're traveling. We can make sure that we can work as a team to not miss out and go see houses and make sure the information's there and we can jump and be ready. And that's one thing you said, what do you do with your buyers? We want to be ready. If you're borrowing money, we need to talk to a lender like yourself, and we need to make sure we're prepared. We have a pre-approval. Have we gotten all the documentation in? Make sure all that ammo is in there and we're ready and just waiting for that domino to hit and that right house to hit.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice that people don't always abide by. Is they like, oh, we'll find the right house and then we'll get our financing in order. Well, listen, if you got to do a 12-day close to be the most competitive offer to meet the needs of the seller, and like that's what you need to do, you don't have time to put stuff together. Like, we have to be ready to go, right? So I think that's for someone who's really serious about buying a house, having everything set up with your lender and being like ready to go and make that happen, understanding like what that means to your finances too, right?
Totally. And one thing is to wrap that all into one thing is just educating your clients. Educating your clients from the day one you meet them and saying, this is how the process is going to look. Not just like, hey, let's go check out this house. We'll look at it. Do you have a lender? Right. Cool. All that stuff. Make sure you educate them on the process. It's just going to be that much cleaner and more successful down the line.
Totally. No, I completely agree. One of the things that we do at Sequence Mortgage is like our 3 E's, which is educate, empower, and encourage, right? Like that's kind of the basis of what we do, is educating the people, our clients, on like, what is the process? What can you expect throughout that 30-day escrow, or sometimes less? what the needs are from you to us and us to you. What are the deliverables? Who's responsible for what? And I'm always surprised how many people think they have to go like find their own appraiser to appraise their house. Like, do you have a list of them? I'm like, dude, I'll take care of that for you. Like, but it's just, they don't know, and they don't know what they're getting into. They know what they want. The end result is owning a home and having a sense of place, which is what we want them to focus on. But no one wants to get a mortgage. No one wants to go through the actual closing of escrow. They want to go look at houses that make them feel good and then own it.
Well, the mind works backwards a lot of times.
For sure.
So we need to be here in our process to educate them about being successful and going through those steps correctly.
Absolutely. And I think there is that pattern that you have to go through, and the ones that the most successful transactions I've been a part of are ones that we follow that path.
Yeah.
And we don't skip any steps.
It's not the only way.
Yeah.
It's the right way, and in my opinion, and it's the way that you're going to, over time, be successful in our business, as well as if you're a home buyer or you're an investor, to get the things done in the right process.
For sure. Like I bet you the customer satisfaction scores, like the end of like how willing are they to refer you their friends and family? Would they use you again on a subsequent transaction? I would bet $1 million that the ones that you take them through that process, educating them, like you said, making sure they understand what they're getting into, what that overall process is, and like actually following that critical path, result in much better end results and happier clients in the end.
Totally.
But you're right. It's not the only way. I've been a part of transactions that are kind of crash landings.
And you got to move fast, especially in these last couple of years. We've seen it all.
Right.
And so in our industry and educating people that are listening to this, a lot of this word normal times and normal markets coming back. And okay, that's great, but we do have to create a sense of a plan.
For sure.
That's all.
So you just mentioned kind of what we've been through in the last few years, and I think that's important context, but we're really interested in what you think is happening next, right? So we kind of talked about now, people on the sidelines. What do you think happens first quarter, second quarter of next year? What are you planning for? What are your expectations?
So, in our market up here in wine country, Petaluma, that's kind of working within, you asked it earlier and I kind of diverted, but in terms of where I work, I kind of live in Petaluma, live and breathe it. And my, my shell kind of goes outwards from there, all the way down to Southern Marin up into,
Right. We describe it as the egg, right? Yeah, it's an egg shape.
Right. The backwoods of Russian River, wherever my clients need to go, I'll go.
It's kind of like up 101.
Yeah.
That's kind of far as Healdsburg down to the Bay Bridge or the Golden Gate Bridge.
You got it.
And kind of that narrow band right there.
So, in that market, there's a lot of different things going on, and, we don't have time to really focus on each little spot. But in general, and I'll focus here in Petaluma and wine country, what I'm seeing is that, and what I think is going to happen is I don't think there's going to be that much more inventory coming on. We're going to see it. It's what happens in the spring. People with their lives move. Things happen during those seasons. Mm-hmm. I think there's also a big thing that's going to happen here in Q2 of 23. The vacation rental market here in Sonoma County is going to lift a moratorium on permits, and that's, I think, going to be something that's going to be a focus of people that have been waiting to invest. There's a lot of money that's come up here, and so that's a whole nother maybe conversation for a later time. Yeah,
we talked about on a previous episode with some folks who do a lot of business in the Russian River area. And there is a moratorium on getting permission from the county to have your home be a short-term rental.
Right.
Because there's concerns about what percentage of the overall housing stock is not for permanent residences. So it's something that they're politically dealing with. Totally. And actually, teaser, coming up on a episode of By the Bay in the future is Tennis Wick, who is the manager of the Permit Management Resource Department for the County of Sonoma, Petaluma resident and someone I've known for a long time. He's going to come on and talk about kind of what's happening overall with the permitting process for building and what's going on with housing policy when it comes to what the county's plan is. So that'll be actually, I'll have to add that to the list of,
for sure.
He's involved in that discussion.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So housing inventory, we don't see that going up a bunch. Demand still kind of staying high.
Demand's there. If you look at all the counties in the Bay Area, and I consider Petaluma, especially, maybe you might not be considered Healdsburg part of the Bay Area, but in terms of Sonoma County, we got a chunk of it that we just spoke on it earlier, that there's still people that commute to San Francisco every day from Petaluma, whether it's part of the week or all the week. So you look at the counties in the Bay Area, and Sonoma is one of the most affordable. And so we're going to still see those people coming in from the outside, moving up here, looking for that better quality of life, the pace that you and I love here. It's safe. It's a fun community. We have wine country. We got the coast. We got Tahoe. We got all the stuff.
Right.
And so the demand is going to stick around.
Right.
There's nothing that tells you it's going to go away. And so if you have that, where are the houses going to come from? And so to me, that everything encompassing that equals a steady market.
Right. No, I mean, that's the question is, where are the houses going to come from?
Right.
Right. Who is moving out of the area? What's trading over? The difficult thing is that people might be in houses that they don't necessarily love, but they got an interest rate that starts with a 2. And they're like, do I really want, like, how much different does a house really need to be for me to justify taking a rate that starts with a 6 or 7, perhaps, depending on where we are, and for a much higher price? It's a hard debate. I think there's a lot of people struggling with that idea of like, this is not the perfect house for us, but we've got a pretty darn good deal on it.
Definitely.
So how, like, you're talking with some sellers too. Are you getting involved in those conversations and helping people see like what's the incremental difference between this house we can sell for $800,000 that we've got, a 2.5% interest rate on, and the $1.1 million house?
Definitely.
Like, how much nicer does a house need? Like, how many more needs does that house need to fulfill for me to make that jump?
Well, that's it right there. I feel that we can be a lot more successful in getting the result for the client by never talking about the numbers, but talking about what their real needs are, and really what does that look like. And it's like, okay, cool, we're saving $300 a month versus, getting this exact house today, versus that we got 5 years ago. But hey, we need that extra room, my husband or my wife works from home now, and, we need that extra space, and all that stuff. Or my mom is now moving with us, and we need that extra ADU. What is the value of that? And more often than not, I feel the success stories come when you actually put that product in front of somebody and they kind of figure it out.
Yeah. I think numbers are important.
Yeah.
But people make buying decisions because of how they feel.
There's a lot of other factors going on with finances. It's not just your mortgage. That's a chunk of it. There's other ways people can tweak and make differences and sacrifices if they can get that little piece that they want that they're missing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting because we do like annual mortgage reviews, kind of overall financial reviews. And for a long time, the conversation was about rate, right?
Oh, yeah.
But we've done a really good job at making sure all of our past clients have very attractive interest rates. And so we've changed the way that we're approaching that. And we're asking them more like, how's the house? Like, is the house meeting all of your needs?
Right.
Because, then we'll run some math and show them like, here's the actual difference mathematically of what the payment would look like and what we're projecting for the future and some other things that we can do to help make things more affordable. And if they're not happy with the house, we're trying to like have a conversation with them so at least they know what their options are.
Right.
Right. As opposed to them just thinking, hey, I got an interest rate that starts with a 2. Why would I ever move?
And I'm stuck.
Yeah. It's like, you're not stuck. We can figure out lots of ways to help you.
Right.
Anyway. So, okay. So looking forward, Q1, Q2 of next year, we're thinking things are going to continue to go.
I think so. No one has the crystal ball, and that's, if I could give any advice to a buyer or seller out there, it's, focus on what is important to you, what, in terms of not the financial success. The house is going to go for what it's going to go for when you're selling it. Sounds kind of simple and dumbed down, but that's what it is.
The market will speak to you.
And you can never time anything perfect.
Right.
You might get lucky. There might have been that person who bought a house in 2016 and then 5 years down the road and last year, and they got all this equity and it worked out perfect. Great. What about those folks that were like, hey, I really need to move, and it's 2020, 2021? They have this like remorse where it's like, oh, did I make the right step? Well, don't focus on that. Focus on where you're at now.
Right. Yeah, it's super interesting. I think that time and context is super important.
Totally.
So in 2016, people were saying that it's a seller's market, and oh my gosh, if you're buying a house now, you'll never make money off it.
Record numbers.
Record numbers. It's never going to appreciate. And in context, in hindsight, that was a buyer's market.
Right.
Because who would have known what the market would do over the last 6 or 7 years?
There's your lesson right there.
Right. Exactly. So, we don't actually know if it's a buyer's or seller's market until we look back years later to see what happens next. Right. We can make projections and guesses and things. But it's all relative to what happens subsequently. Right. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. I'm hearing a lot. Hey, it's a more neutral market, and I'm kind of like, well, I mean, there's more negotiation happening for sure.
Most definitely.
That's there's not debatable. There's definitely more negotiation, more concessions, and kind of compromise from sellers.
That's what you're seeing, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Almost on every deal,
yeah.
There's some type of, even like the really beautiful, perfect houses, we're still seeing some type of concession from the seller.
Totally.
Right. Which is good. I think that's a healthier market to be. And as opposed to, we're the sellers, we're going to put this house on the market, it's going to sell for what it sells for, and don't ask us for anything.
I mean, talk about creating remorse. It's like you do that, you're the buyer, you come in and you wrote a non-contingent offer and you're really pressed and you did all this and you didn't really look at the disclosures that close. And now you're 6 down down the line and it's raining. And you're like, oh man, what did I buy? Right? There's all that going on.
For sure.
Right.
And that was scary, honestly. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine being a first time. I try to put myself in other people's shoes, and being, a first time home buyer in that market where all the advice everyone's telling you, if you want even a shot at getting your offer accepted, you have to go in with no loan contingency, no inspection contingency, no appraisal contingency. So if the house appraises short, you're just paying more money. Like, that's scary.
Oh yeah.
So I'm grateful that things have kind of slowed down, because it gives our buyers a chance to take a breath, think about it, read the disclosures, have their inspections done. I think it's a healthier thing for the market.
Most definitely. Yeah. One thing to think about there, we're still in California,
right.
We're still in the Bay Area. And so by no means is it totally, we can sit back and relax. We talked about it just a second ago about the demand and the low inventories. You got to be ready.
For sure.
Still can do your homework, but you got to be ready and be comfortable, and then you can make that jump.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of change and kind of get into you a little bit. So how long have you been selling real estate?
For a little over 5 years now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so you grew up in a real estate family, though?
More or less, yep.
Right. So talk to me a little bit about that, because you have family members who are involved in different parts of the business.
Yeah.
And
so, the beauty of why I made this jump 5 years ago is in my father being in the loan and real estate business for 20 plus years in the greater Bay Area. Also my sister, who's been about 10 years in the business, living down in Southern California, Manhattan Beach area, both super successful. And the reason why I was wanting to make this jump is I had that mentorship. I had them behind me as, my silent team where I can call and really learn, because, we all have the internet and we all know we can find answers. And you get your real estate license, and some say, hey, you get your real estate license. That's when you start learning in every deal. I learn in every deal. Right. Every client I help, there's always something going on that's different from the last one.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting. It happens on the mortgage side too.
Sure.
Like you take the test, you have to do like your 20 hours of required studying. You take this test, and it's actually quite hard. And once you pass the test, then you start learning how to be a loan officer, right. And they don't teach you how to consult clients and help them understand long-term effects of making a financial decision. It's mostly about rules and regulations and things that you can't do for fair lending laws, which is super important. Like, we should talk about those things, but they're doesn't actually prepare you to be successful in the industry.
In everyday industry, yeah.
So you have to have those like peers and mentors.
So I had those peers and mentors.
Right.
We were talking,
and it's cool that it's your dad and your sister.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, easy, right? We were talking about it offline with folks in your life too, and I just think it's super important to have that in any business. And so, that's why I made that jump. Being in sales in the wine industry for a few years prior to that, and kind of getting my feet wet there and not getting scared to talk to people and doing all that fun stuff, and at the same time selling wine, which is not the worst gig in the world, and not the worst place to do it in. So that's where I came from, and prior to that, lived about 8 years in San Francisco after college. Loved that. Grew up just south of San Francisco in the town of Burlingame. So, that's my story, and now I have a family here in Petaluma, and love this town, and it's been great.
That's awesome. I think it's cool that you had a career in sales prior to getting into real estate. I think that everyone
highly recommend it.
Everyone's in sales, whether you know it or not, right? Even if you don't, even like an outside salesperson, you're selling ideas within your company. You're selling yourself to get a job. Like everyone needs to know how to present themselves as like, what's your differentiating value proposition and why you, right?
Yeah. Because you're selling yourself.
Right. And especially like, selling wine in wine country, it's kind of a commodity, whether they buy from you in your tasting room or go to the other 40 wineries on the same street.
Add a 0 to that.
yeah. Right, 400. Okay, you're right. So we got my math is wrong, but why are they choosing you? And I bet you it's similar to what you're experiencing in real estate. It's about the experience that you're giving these people, the education about the product that you're selling. Yeah. So like, have you thought about that at all? Like those parallels?
Yeah, actually I have. And it's really, you hit it right on the head there. It's all about that connection. It's the connection between people, and it's a people business. It's a service business, just like the wine industry is for comparison. It's about serving those people what they're looking for that day or that time frame or for life, hopefully, with your clients. Some of the best clients I had in the wine business became my, if you want to call them, they weren't my best friends, but they were my professional friends. They were people that I cared about because I saw good things in them. I wanted to help them. They loved coming here to visit, and they loved the product that we were putting out, and we shared those similarities.
For sure. I'm going to tell you a funny story about user experience related to wine. So my wife Megan and I before we had kids, we went to Maui, and it was like a week in Maui, and we went to the winery on the island. And, we like wine country at the time. That's what we did on the weekends. We go wine tasting and do something, go to lunch somewhere. Anyhow, we're in Hawaii, and we go to this winery, and it's, 10,000% humidity, and it's like raining, and it's like, we're in that island thing, and we're drinking this pineapple wine, and they're telling us about how they're the only winery on the island, and creating this great experience. And we're walking all through, and we get to the end, and this was the best tasting wine I've ever, like, it was so great, and the experience was so awesome. So we bought a case of pineapple wine and had it shipped home. And we get home, and it's Petaluma, and 60 to 5 degrees or whatever, and we're like, this is going to be great. It's going to be like just like we're on the island. Let's go back, and it's going to be awesome. And we open up this bottle, and we're like, what is this? Why did we buy this? Well, because the experience at the time was amazing. It felt great. The education was awesome. It felt like the right thing to do, but in a different context, it was not spectacular.
That's
so
funny.
Creating that experience, though, was why we were in. Let's go. Let's do the whole thing. So we made sangria out of it and turned out okay. But
there you go.
It's really about that experience. They created an amazing experience for us, and we loved it. Right. So that's kind of what that's the objective is like, hey, let's make sure that we dial in this experience and make sure that it's right.
For sure. And you only do that by, showing that you care and doing the work prior to showing up.
Right.
You and I both know that it takes, that consistency and that work every day behind the scenes to show that come across when you're in that, that connection with your client. Absolutely. In front of them.
Absolutely. So. Cool. So let's see, we're kind of wrapping up here. So like what else should we know about you, about your business? What do you want us to know about you?
Yeah, interesting. I'm, like I said, I'm here in Petaluma. I'm loving it. It's been a great experience on my track from the peninsula, going to college, going to San Francisco, coming up and jumping in a number of different industries. And, what I can say about the people that I hopefully serve here in the future in this town and in this area is that, it's an awesome place to live. And I think that's the one thing that a lot of people don't really know. They might know, but until you come up here and experience it and that quality of life, whether it's, in the middle of winter and, you and your buddies or you and I are out on the golf course and all of a sudden it's February and it's like 70 degrees and you're like, well, this is pretty nice. And that's why this real estate costs what it costs. That's why those things, they're there. We're not in the middle of Illinois and it's 5 degrees in February, right? So those are the things that I like to educate my clients on, whether they're coming from other areas or, whatever it is. And
I think there's a lot of good lifestyle, family, events, restaurants and breweries, things that make it a really rich place to live, right? Like a really it's a full service community, right? Like it's got everything. So I think it's really amazing that we have access to so many things. And then like we were talking about earlier, how there's so many different little communities along the way.
Most definitely.
Right. So like, Sebastopol is completely different than Petaluma, and Sonoma's got a different vibe. Like Healdsburg and Russian River are just so different, even though they're within a short drive of each other.
And even down to Marin, you can have all different types of walks of life, styles of life. Tiburon versus San Rafael,
right?
Totally different.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of the Bay Area, and that I think everybody can be a part of that, and that's why I'd be lying if I never thought about moving anywhere else. But I always come back to this where it's like, gosh, they got everything here. And picking a pocket like the North Bay and spending my last, call it 10 years of my life up here, I'm happy. And, that's something that is important to a lot of people and it's important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I always like to ask kind of one last question, which is a piece of financial advice that you think everyone should know and that they should live by, just in general, not necessarily to do with real estate, but just a piece of financial advice to be more successful financially in life.
Don't worry about the little things and the superficial things, and focus on the experience, and that will guide you. And it's slowly guiding me in the right way. We all make choices along the way, but where I've felt the best reward is not focusing on spending the money on those little things, and focusing on the experience and the time with your friends and family, and working hard. And all those encompassing comes to a great financial plan. There's a lot of details in there, but in terms of just block out all that nonsense that we get served every day and focus on the good things in life.
I love that. Yeah. I think that's really important. I think a lot of people spend money and time on things to try to be impressing other people instead of focusing on their own life experience and the time that they spend with their friends and family.
100%.
And I wish that everyone would listen to that advice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Both you and I too.
Yeah. So, we're all, that's a total lie to say that I never did that, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. And thank you for that. That's really cool.
Sure, man.
That's all I have. Do you have anything else you want to add?
That's it.
Dude, you're awesome. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Dan.
And we'll talk soon.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Stay up to date with Bay Area real estate. Hit subscribe now if you haven't already. Did you enjoy this episode? We love reviews in the Apple Podcasts app. We'll read yours on the show. Hear more shows about Northern California now